or where he was visiting, rather, the defense headquarters was holding a briefing on the war against insurgency in the Northeast. Well, in the last 2 weeks, the DHQ reports that 51 terrorists were killed by forces prosecuting the counter-terrorism and counter-insurgency war in that sub-region. Well, addressing a bi-weekly briefing, the Acting Director of Defense Media Operations, Brigadier General Bernard Onyoko, adds that during the same period, no fewer than 1,081 Boko Haram fighters, including their family members, surrendered to the troops. Well, under Operation Adinkai, Brigadier General Oyuko says the troops carried out several land and air operations that recorded significant results at different locations across the theater within the period.
Own troops carried out several land and air operations that recorded significant results at different locations across the theater within the period under review. Some of these locations are towns and villages and roads in Bama, Mafa, Pulka, Konduga, Goza, Mobar, and Dikwa local government areas of Borno State, as well as Madagali local government area of Adamawa State. In the last 2 weeks, a total of 51 terrorists were neutralized and 19 were arrested. Also, a total of 122 assorted arms, including AK-47 rifles, general-purpose machine guns, and PKT guns, and 1,499 rounds of different calibers of ammunition were recovered, while a total of 8 enemy gun trucks were destroyed during operations. Additionally, troops' kinetic and non-kinetic operations have continued to drive terrorists out of their camps and surrendering to troops. Within the period under focus, a total of 1,081 terrorists and their families, comprising 187 adult males, 326 adult females, and 568 children, surrendered to own troops at different locations within the Operation Hadinkai theater. The surrendered terrorists were properly profiled and handed over to appropriate security agencies for further action.
So that's regarding security. But the president's visit to Borno State did not stop the last Federal Executive Council meeting. In fact, it's been called the extraordinary Federal Executive Council meeting for the year from holding as a Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, chaired the meeting on his behalf. A part of the outcome of the meeting, which had 10 ministers physically in attendance, is the awarding of 65.3 billion naira for contracts in the Power Ministry. This is according to the Minister of Power, Mr. Abubakar Aliyu, who explained that the contracts are part of efforts by the governments to bridge the power deficits while blaming the current situation on previous neglect of the power sector. Well, it's over a year to the 2023 presidential elections, but make no mistake, the pieces on the board are already moving, and they're moving fast. And amid speculations that the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, might just be prevailed upon to make a move for the #1 seat in the country, former military president, General Ibrahim Babangida, has been speaking very highly of the Vice President, the former leader who spoke when the Osinbajo grassroots organization visited him in his uphill residence in Minna, said Professor Yemi Osinbajo should stay on course. In his words, "I know the Vice President very well. He's a good man, a man who has conviction about Nigeria, a man who can communicate with the country and inspire people. Such a man is a worthy person to work with. We need good man to lead Nigeria, a man who has a passion for this country. Nigeria is a good country," he went on to say. "The people of Nigeria are good. You must learn to understand people, and constant decision, or rather discussion, is key." So General Babangida told the group that he accepted to speak to them because he knows Professor Osinbajo has what it takes to be a good leader. And while responding to the former leader, the national convener of the organization, Mr. Ojo Folusha, said they were happy with his kind words and promised to keep mounting pressure on the Vice President to pick interest in contesting for the presidency. We still have over a year to go, but as I said, there are a lot of moves happening on that one. But let's get into the big one for tonight on the program. The political scene in Nigeria is, quite intriguing. Nigeria has its own very special flavor of politics, and we're digging deep into that tonight. We're focusing on the All Progressives Congress, APC, and we're taking a look at the performance of the party, the agitation within the party from the youths, from various leaders, and of course, the plans for the convention ahead of the 2023 general election. And we're joined on the program tonight by Mr. Ayo Oyalawo, who is a member of the APC Concerned Group. He joins us virtually on the program. Well, Mr. Oyalawo, it's great to have you on the program, but let me just, before we get into the party, intricacies, let me get your thoughts first on the kind words that the former military leader had to say about Professor Shimbajo. Is this some sort of sign for you as well? Because speculations are rife about whether or not the vice president will be contesting.
Good evening. Well, I would not want to get into the realms of speculation. Like the former president has said, and like anyone knows, especially when Vice President Yemi Osinbajo was acting as the acting president, he did extremely well, and nobody can take that away from him. So I always believe, for me, it's a plus for the APC that we have very good hands about, quite a number of good hands that can easily step into the shoes of the current president, Muhammadu Buhari. So for me and for our party, it's a plus. It's a good thing that we have very capable, very smart people, including His Excellency, the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, and a few others who are already justly, but we must respect them. The Vice President said he has not decided. So I do not want to join the speculation. I don't want to get involved in what I have completely no knowledge about. But I believe he's a capable hand if he decides that he wants to run for the highest office in the land.
Well, the Osinbajo support group says that they will keep mounting pressure on the vice president till he concedes. And I wonder, how do these things work, really? Is it a function of the pressure that you get? Maybe that's why they say the people want me to run, or it's a decision that you make on your own?
Actually, it's a combination of plenty of things. Typically, you have people who like you, people who believe in you, who will go out of their way to mount pressure on you, but you have to self-introspect also and look into yourself and be well aware and be sure of yourself that you are interested. That is why I said I don't want to join the speculation. The VP must come to the realization that he wants to run, and then when he has decided that, then he can now throw his heart into the ring. Then people who want to support him will now decide if they want to or not. But like I said, he's eminently qualified. And in politics, you never can say never. People will definitely mount such pressure, and it is not a new thing in Nigeria, and it's something we always have to live with. That some people will look at a candidate and say, "Look, this guy must run." Some for very good reasons, very altruistic, and some for their own selfish reasons. But whichever way, people will always mount pressure on whoever they feel is capable to run for the highest office in the land.
Well, Mr. Oyalawo, I'm not letting you off just that easily on this one. I know you're trying to escape, but we know some people who have made their intentions known, but there's some others who are keeping it, undercover, as it were. But this is an area you're familiar with. You've seen, this cycle time and again. When is it too early to signify your interest, and when is it too late?
Well, there is really no early or late time. We all know the governor of Kogi State has thrown his own hat into the ring, and he said he wants to run. And he's a governor, which means he's automatically he's a qualified candidate. We have had a snippet of the leader of the party, our father, our leader, Ashwaju, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We've had stories that he wants to run. We've heard of my elder brother, my very good friend, the governor of Ekiti State, His Excellency, Kayode Fayemi. And I think I've also heard of the Minister of Transport, that is His Excellency, former governor of River State, Rotimi Chibike Amechi. So yeah, there are a lot of good hands, like I said earlier on. I'm not running away from the topic. I'm only saying until people come out to say I'm running, we cannot put words in their mouth. But like I said earlier, and I'm repeating it, the APC should count itself very lucky to have this eminently qualified. I mean, all the names I've mentioned now, there is no throwaway among any of them. These are great guys. These are wonderful men. They have made their marks. You can see it. They have done, they've run for some other offices. They've occupied some other offices. They've done so many things. So they have their track record that will speak for them. So none of the names that I just called now that you can see as throwaway, although I have a selfish, I have somebody in my mind who has not even been mentioned. He's completely not in the list I just mentioned, but one day when I see him, I will tell him that I think he should run. Maybe I will also join and carry placard and force him to run for the office.
Okay, that will be quite interesting to see. But I mean, this election, this 2023 election, is not just dependent on the candidates your party or the candidate your party puts forward. There are dozens other parties as well who would say they have qualified candidates. Take the PDP, for example. So, I mean, aren't you factoring in these other political parties top on that list, the PDP, a possible third force, as they say, and the rest? Don't you think you are perhaps overlooking all of them?
Kayode, you have said something very critical here. The PDP. That, for me, when you take away the PDP, there's no other third force. These third force people are just jokers, political jokers, in my opinion. You see, you don't come every 4 years, make noise and go away. If you really want to be a third force, you will have to organize over a period of time. We are talking about a country that has 8,099 wards. So you are talking about having 8,099 agents and more in every of those wards. So these guys just go around on a few social media pages, make noise, disturb people, see if they can raise funds. Some of them actually have been accused of stealing some of these funds. So for me, those ones are just jokers. But for the PDP, yes, it's a formidable opposition. We are looking at the perennial runner, Atiku Abubakar, the former Vice President, His Excellency. Then we are looking at another person that I've been hearing his name, the man from Sokoto, the current sitting governor of Sokoto State, Right Honorable, and His Excellency, Aminu Tambuwal. And I think, although maybe not a serious candidate, probably is looking at being made the vice presidential candidate of the PDP. That is the governor of River State. So that's also a formidable opposition to factor in. But like I rightly said earlier on, they are not an issue. The APC has eminently qualified candidates. If we get our house in order, if we do what we need to do properly as a party, we will brook our opposition. Honestly, there is no fear about it. If we do what we ought to do by cleaning up the audience table, by making sure that the party goes into the election as a one undivided house in 2023.
Incidentally, President Muhammadu Buhari, you use the word perennial runner, also ran for this position perennially. So, judging by that, do I say factor, or that toga, as it were, would you say that the former vice president will then be eminently qualified to fill in that position, judging by the perennial running that you referenced?
Well, there's a difference. President Muhammadu Buhari ran under different parties, the ANPP twice, the CPC once, before we all came together to form the APC, and then he became the first candidate of the new party. Unlike the current perennial runner, there is a factor that works against him, and I'll tell you why. This man was in the PDP. He couldn't run in the PDP because he was rightly accused by his boss of being corrupt, of being a very terrible human being. The records are there. The book that the man wrote, 3 titles in one, is still there. His own boss said he has no credibility. Then he came in the APC, to the AC, that we now made the ACN just for this man to run. As soon as he lost the election, he ran away again to the PDP. The moment they started this, he will run for the North thing, he threw his heart into the thing, he couldn't get it. He came back to the, I mean, you can't compare him with President Buhari. Please, let's not do that. It's, for me, while I don't want to say it's an insult, I think it's beneath President Buhari to be compared to that man. However,
well,
he's a formidable
Mr.
he has amassed
we'll definitely stay away from personal. We'll definitely stay away from personal attacks. That's your opinion.
No.
And you know, it's a matter of semantics, you know, really, when you say that. But you know what? Yeah, let's move on, really. And I mean, stay away from, you know, personalizing this. And, you know, when you were mentioning the options available for your party, I'm quite surprised that you didn't mention your name, because I know that the youths in the APC have been pushing for more, calling for, you know, better internal democracy and the rest.
I am interested in running for a different office, not the presidency. I am interested in running for an election in 2023, but definitely not the presidency. You see, this is where I keep telling the youth that we are getting it wrong. The presidency is not the ultimate for us. There are a lot of other areas where we can be useful. I have my very good friend, my brother. I mean, I call him my brother, I call him my friend. His name is Honorable Shina Pella. That is how the young people should take charge of their destiny. You should look at taking over some other areas. Look, we have a lot of offices that we can run for. You have the local government, you have the state houses of assembly, you have the National Assembly, the 2 tiers. You see, young people, those are areas we should look at. You do not have any experience, you've never even been a class monitor, you have never been the clerk of your SS Association, you want to be president of Nigeria. Honestly, we make a joke and a mockery of very serious issues here. For me,
are you saying,
I want the young people to participate massively, but not to start lying to ourselves. We do not have the resources to run for presidency. But if we begin to build to the point where we have a huge number of our young people in the state houses of assembly, a huge number of our people in the National Assembly, both the House of Representatives, especially the House of Representatives, and a few in the Senate, by the time they do 1 or 2 terms, the experiences they will have garnered will be a lot of, will be very useful to now begin to look at the presidency. But for a man who has never run a class monitor, who's never been a class monitor, suddenly want to be president, this is not a joke. Nigeria is too huge, too diverse for us to make a joke of the presidency and whatever. So for me, I am one of those people who believe the young people must not just be given a chance, must run and make sure that they have good opportunities that they can win for whatever position they are running for. But we must be realistic. Not
so
just
are you
running
saying,
for the sake of running so that you can have in your CV that I'm a former presidential candidate? It's just a joke that people have done.
Well, more like aspirant, actually. But just to be clear, are you saying that there is no young person within the APC that is eminently qualified, including yourself, to be president of Nigeria?
Well, I can't say that. There are a lot of young people who are qualified. And I take you back to the first, this republic. When 1999, we went back into democracy. You remember some of our governors at that time were basically, a lot of them were under 40. A lot of them were 39, 41, like that. So there is nothing stopping young people from aspiring. However, what I'm saying is clear. I cannot lie to myself that I want to be president of Nigeria. At the time, I aspired for it, but I know that, look, these things are now getting closer to people in government. I realize it is not a joke that I want to choke myself in. But there are other offices that are more suitable, where you can learn how things work. You find out that when you put people in ordinary panels, you will begin to see how they will unravel. Because it is easy to sit down and criticize, to say, oh, Macron was 38, oh, the president of Chile is 35. But the honest truth is Nigeria is not those countries. Nigeria is far, far different. So I will not say we don't have young people, but I'm yet to see any young person who wants to be president. Yet, if I find one who comes out to be president, I will definitely consider thinking about supporting such person. However, what I'm saying in essence is that I would rather the young people look at more realistic position, like party position. We want more young people in the party organ so that they will learn. If we have not just youth leadership that has become synonymous with young people, but there are other areas. For instance, we can have young people as an organizing secretary, young people as spokesperson of our party, young people as financial secretary, and other very good positions. Young people going into the House of Representatives, young people aspiring for the State of Assembly. That way they can effect more changes. They can make more laws that will give us better leverage as a country and as a people. Not just also run, just say, oh, it's in my CV, I also run for election. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't think we should trivialize these kind of very serious issues. There are a lot of areas that young people can make a name for themselves, and they will make a lot of differences that will impact on the generality of our people. For me, that makes more sense, and it is more germane than just running for the sake of running.
Mr. Ayala, for you, it might be trivializing it, but for some other young people, it's aspiring. In fact, we have the Not Too Young to Run Act, essentially, which the president signed into law. And I know a lot of young people, by the way, who will disagree with you on some of the points you have made. So there's something you also said in terms of, pedigree, I mean, the experience, yes, that's one. Another point is in terms of financing, money. And you said that a lot of young people, in fact, good number of young people cannot afford that. Some would also question that and say, I mean, it depends on where your source is. But aren't you worried that, money, as it were, plays a huge role in determining and deciding who governs our country?
Now, did you see that you are helping me to answer my question? That is why I say young people should flood some other areas where we can make the changes. See, if we have a lot of young people making laws, there will be changes that will now de-emphasize the use of money. You see, the mistake that was made was that when 1999 was introduced to us and we went into democracy, a lot of good people ran away from getting involved. So the people who took charge made the offices something that they profited from and amassed a lot of wealth, turned our politics into politics of money, such that many people cannot afford it if you have not either run for an office, if you do not have a backer or something like that. So for me, the young people will do well to concentrate more on flooding the state houses of assembly, the national legislative houses, both the rep and the senate, but the rep for me most especially, so that if they are able to build that experience, if they are able to flood the place in numbers, we will be able to make more germane difference in terms of legislation that will now help to make room. See, a generation can sacrifice itself for the next generation. That maybe young people of these days don't aspire for presidency, but clear the path so that some other people will make it. I can't remember the lady's name now, but I'm sure maybe if I mention, you will help me to remember her name. There's a lady that helped a particular state to win an election in the US in this last election. A state that the Democrats have never won in a long time. But she sacrificed 10 years of her life to work assiduously and build to the point where the Democrats had a majority in that state. I forgot the name now, it just went off my head. But what I'm saying is that this generation of young people do not necessarily have to be president to make room for another generation, so that in the next 10, 20, 15 years, we can begin to have people running for offices with genuine chances of winning, who are 30, 40, even 50. That way, a generation will have paved way for that coming, for another generation, so that in the next few years, we will have a system that works, so that you might be just 35, 40, right, even 45, and you can run for the presidency of Nigeria, and you have a genuine chance of winning.
Okay, Mr. Oyalo, we're due for a break in about 2 minutes, but let's now bring this into your party, as it were, because you've had agitations time and again. You've had to address this in public, and that's what we're doing right now. Your party plans to have its convention, their demands. We've seen crises across states as well, but this one particularly for the youths. Those agitations you had, or perhaps still have, has your party been able to sort them out, to meet them satisfactorily?
I don't think so. We seem to still be hiding under a finger. Like I said the first time I was in your channel, in your studio, I was interviewed by Shion. I said clearly I am not a young person. I am clocking, I said I was pushing 50. So I cannot clearly call myself that young, although I'm still young, but I'm not a youth in the sense of youth. However, it is our agitation that is for me and my group, which is the APC rebirth, the concerned APC for the rebirth of the APC. We are looking beyond just young people. We're looking for an opportunity, a party that grants opportunity to everybody. Our anger was clearly on the fact that a few people have hijacked the party machinery and they just do whatever they like. For instance, as we speak to you today, we've been told that there will be a convention in February. We do not have a timetable. We do not know the modalities. Nothing has been said. So it is clear by any standard, even the blind can see that these guys don't want to run the convention. It is clear they want to continue to play to the gallery, they want to continue to drag their foot until we get to the point where we'll have to just throw our hands in surrender and then they will manipulate whatever they want to manipulate. However, with what we are seeing, not just my group, a lot of other groups have risen. If these people do not change and do what is right, it might be a disaster for our party. So we are asking that the caretaker committee should, as a matter of urgency, put in all the modalities so that the convention will be held as early as possible in February, so that we'll have a national working committee in place to help foster unity, to help build momentum towards the 2023 election.
So, Mr. Oyalo, we're due for a break. But who are these people you referenced? What should be done?
I just mentioned the caretaker committee.
These are the questions we'll get to answer in a moment. Plus, why are these issues being kept under wraps? A couple of other things we need to touch on regarding the APC in the build-up to its convention and the 2023 election. Mr. Oyalo is still with us, so please stay with us. So let's rejoin Mr. Ayo Oyalawo, who is a member of the APC Concerned Group, who joins us virtually on the program this evening. Well, Mr. Oyalawo, when I was asking about who these people are, I just wanted to be clear, really. So you say that they're members of a caretaker committee, and that will definitely mean the chairman of a caretaker committee, very well respected.
Not just him.
Okay, I know, but just to be clear. So that would imply him, who is a very well-respected leader of your party, the governor of a state, and other members, the whole team. Is that what you mean?
The whole team, and we suspect that some governors are part of it too. See, let me tell you, if those governors are not supporting, they will have resigned from this committee. The honest truth was, and still is, they had 6 months to deliver a convention. As I speak to you, they have spent 1 year, 6 months, and they still don't look like they want to leave.
But all these are being done.
The danger is that
Mr. Oyalawo, all these are being done, in quote, with the blessing of the president. The president is in the know as well. So is it also a part of this?
Everybody keep making. That's the mistake everybody is making. The president does not form the neck alone. The first time the party gathered together to give these people their tenure to start, there was the neck that sat. As I speak to you today, they've been extending and extending, telling us the president said. We have not had the president say a word, but they have been the one telling the world the president said. But there is a neck of the party. I want to know, maybe I was not aware, maybe everybody is not aware. I want to be reminded, when did the neck of the party sit to grant them all this illegal extension that they've been granting themselves? Now, these are the dangers. These people, they don't seem to care what will happen.
Well, you know that they say silence means consent, Mr. Oyalawo. If you said, I said something I didn't say, I naturally will come out and say, I didn't say. The president will come out and say, well, I didn't say that, wouldn't he?
Well, you see, the danger is this. If they are not looking at the legality of what they are doing, they just want to keep pushing. We don't know who is beating the drum behind them, but it is clear that something is amiss. And the risk is this. We have won some states that the Supreme Court has given to our opponents who didn't even get half of the votes we got in some of those states, all because we did something wrong. Now we are playing to the gallery, playing into the hands of our opponents. Now, it is clear that these people are working to destabilize the party. And honestly, wherever they are, I don't know. But the danger is that if this thing is not sorted quickly and without danger to the party, there is a risk that we will lose an election that we will have won fairly. And if that is done, it will be a disaster for not just the candidates that we will present, but for the entire party itself. So that is the risk that we stand. That is the risk that we are facing as a party if they continue to illegally elongate their tenure as it has been done over time. The neck of the party has not, and I stand to be corrected, the neck of the party has not extended their tenure. So who is extending their tenure to this point? And why have they not brought out a timetable for the National Convention if they are not trying to do another mago and then by February tell us, oh, sorry, because we have an election in Ekiti and then we have an election in one other state, let's just go ahead and continue, then we'll run the primaries. That is their ultimate agenda. And anybody with half a brain can see that their plan is to continue to drag foot until they are able to get to the point where they run the primaries so that they'll be able to manipulate for whoever they want to. But this is a risk. It's a danger to our party.
Well, Mr. Yalo, this is certainly
APC.
This is certainly what you think, and I imagine that, I mean, the leadership will also have their own perspective about this as well.
I am praying that they prove me wrong. I am sincerely praying and hoping that they prove me wrong. But from every indication, this is their plan. From every indication, that is their plan.
Okay, so I mean, I can now imagine, or let me just ask you that. So regarding the issue of direct or indirect primaries, I want to imagine where your position is on this, based on your submissions about, internal democracy, having, every member of the party having some sort of, input in the party. So where do your leanings lie in terms of this direct or indirect primary provision? I imagine you probably lean towards the Senate and the House of Reps on this.
Well, I support the Senate, but I had a discussion with somebody whose name I'm not going to mention now yesterday, and I was very angry that why did the president not sign the bill? But I got a very simple explanation, which makes sense. And then I was shown the letter of the president to the Senate, and everything makes sense that, look, while direct primaries, which we all favor it, and my group favor direct primaries, but it is clear that you cannot force a system of selection on every party. So I think the president is right in saying, why not change it to, he did not say he will not sign, but he advised that maybe you should leave room for all parties to select the system they want, direct primaries, indirect primaries, or consensus. So for me, I think that makes a lot of sense. So I am not bitter anymore. I understand why the president did not sign. And what he has said is if they put those clauses correctly, given the opportunity for parties to choose, then he's likely going to sign the next time. So I think that makes sense.
Well, it's interesting you sound quite sure of this, but let me just read to you a statement by the NBA president, Mr. Olumide Akpata, on the refusal of President Buhari to assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021. So this just came in, and there you see, well, the NBA is actually expressing its discontent with the manner of the exercise of the president's veto. Now, for the NBA, first considers the significance of the bill, and well, they expected that the executive arm of government will be more directly involved in the legislative process while the bill passed through the various legislative stages at both houses of the National Assembly. So in essence, it would seem the NBA is saying, well, why wait until that moment to say, well, we don't agree with that provision, when this was a journey that started for some people maybe 5-6 years ago since we had the last amendment. So do you agree with the NBA on that, that perhaps the executive should have been more involved in this process rather than just sort of throw it back at the tail end?
Well, I think the NBA, especially Akpata, maybe just want to play politics. The letter of the president is very clear. If he has vetoed the bill, he will not write explaining his position. That's what I just told you now. He did not veto the bill. He wrote and explained, and if those clauses are readjusted to accommodate the fact that, see, you and I just had a discussion earlier before we got to this point, that some parties are very small. How much can they raise? If you are going to run direct primaries for every party, then INEC will need trillions to do 8,999 words for God knows how many parties want to be president, want to present a presidential candidate. It is not feasible. Therefore, every party should be given the chance to do what. So let's MBA and other people go and understand what the president says, instead of just trying to, everything for them is attack and attack and attack. And I don't think it is right. Like I said, I was initially not happy, but rather than jump up and start fronting, what I did was, what was the reason the president gave? And when I saw the reason, it makes a lot of sense. He didn't veto the bill. He just said, he explained why he didn't sign. And I am sure if the National Assembly adjusts and give parties the opportunity to choose whichever mode they want to use,
okay,
to sit down and say every party must do their primaries in this manner, I don't think it is right. So
this
for
is
me, the president was right.
Well, this is a very interesting topic, really, Mr. Yalawa, because the MBA is the most respected body of lawyers in Nigeria. So, I mean, these are not just random people. They are people who are well-versed in the law. This is their job, essentially. And, I mean, looking through the constitutional provision, because there's been the back and forth about whether or not the president, you know, declined assent, he vetoed. But the Constitution is very clear in Section 58, sub 4, where it says, where a bill is presented to the president for assent, he shall within 30 days thereof signify that he assents or that he withholds assent. In fact, the Constitution does not use the term veto. It's either assent or withhold assent. And in this case, the president withheld assent. So I wonder, you're saying that he didn't withhold his assent or what?
Explain to you that he withheld assent and wrote explaining why. Just one clause. I just explained. So if that clause is readjusted, he will sign. Most likely he will sign. Maybe the letter of the president should be made public so that everybody will read it, because I have a copy. I could send one to you if you want to. The letter is clear. He didn't veto, he didn't decline it. He withheld assent so that they will readjust that aspect. And if you also listen to the National Assembly, the Speaker of the House had already said they will come together and fix whatever it is. It is just one particular issue. And if that issue is fixed so that you do not force a mode of primaries on every party, then the president will sign. Let us just take it in that. I don't think we should make everything about black and white. There's always a shade of gray everywhere.
Okay, I see you're saying that. I mean, sometimes you can bend the rules, but the Constitution is clear, Mr. Yalawo. And that letter you referenced, we have analyzed the letter, given the reasons that the president gave, from security to the cost to litigations and the rest. But again, the president clearly said, for these reasons, I am withholding my assent, which some will call a veto, as it were. But in order not to dwell too much in this, I mean, the NBA's statement is out there. Let's come back on course. So, as it stands right now, I mean, based on the new facts that you said has been presented to you, you now think that maybe that should be tweaked to direct and indirect. Am I right?
I mean, give parties the opportunity to choose what they want to choose, whether they want to do direct, they want to do indirect, or they want to do consensus, so that you do not force parties into choosing a mode of primaries. For me, that makes a lot of sense. It is more democratic to allow people choices than to forcefully say everybody must do it the way we have been doing it. Whether we like it or not, most of us will say we like direct, but we've seen direct primaries also manipulated when they want to. So yes, I know the whole idea is because we do not want manipulation. But if politicians want to mess up anything, they will mess it up. Therefore, let us give parties the opportunities to make a choice on whichever mode of primaries they want to engage in. For me, that should be the right thing to do.
Okay, Mr. Ayalowo, let's expand this conversation. I mean, you've given us an insight based on the fact that you're a member of the APC. So let's hear from the opposition, PDP, as it were. And we're joined on the program tonight by Mr. Anthony Ehilebo, who's the head of New Media, the People's Democratic Party. Mr. Ehilebo, thank you for joining us on the program. Just before you joined in, we were discussing the president's withholding his assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Mr. Yalawa thinks that, well, it's not quite black and white. It is a shade of gray, as it were. But for you and your party, I mean, we've heard your party's statement regarding this, but listening to Mr. Yalawa, do you perhaps see reason as well?
Well, thank you very much, Kadi. You know, it's instructive to remember that Mr. President has withheld accent. This is the 5th time Mr. President is refusing to sign the Electoral Amendment Bill. And it's quite interesting that knowing that if he had a disagreement with any clause or any section of that agreement, he could easily have accented and gotten the APC senators or House of Rep members who are majority APC members to work on the clause that he's uncomfortable with. But when there's a clamor, and it now seems like a grand conspiracy, because this is the same National Assembly that refused in totality, and this is noting that it was only members of the APC in the Senate that rejected electronic transmission of results after they have been expressly explained to in clear terms that this particular transmission of results has been tried, tested, and verified that it works in both Edo and Ondo states. And it has reduced, unlike what we had in Bayelsa and Kogi states, where we had high incidences of violence, in Edo State and Ondo State, which were the later elections, you had reduced violence as against what you had in Bayelsa and Kogi State.
Okay, looks like the connection failed in us, but we'll try to get...
So now...
okay, there you go. Please go ahead.
You know, it is interesting that someone who has consistently said he would leave Nigeria better than he met it, that has declined accent 5 times. There's not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, 5 times this man has declined to accent to amendment to the Electoral Act. And this is from 2015 to today. So it's very interesting that we'll sit down and make excuses for Mr. President that it's okay, it's because of this. He never intended, for me, as far as I'm concerned, both the APC and the president never had any intentions and still have no intent. I will be pleasantly surprised, like the former president, President Obasanjo said at some point, I'll be pleasantly surprised if he signs any amendment to the Electoral Act, because this is the same party, the same set of people who refused vehemently to pass the electronic transmission of results in the Electoral Act. In fact, it was so bad that in the House of Rep, the PDP senators staged a walkout. I was not surprised. In fact, the impute of the direct primaries, which particularly the PDP is even against, but we don't mind. We don't mind that it is there. It's as long as it's an improvement to our elections process. You cannot be a president that came in by virtue of an election as an opposition lead, as an opposition person, and you became president, and you have not done anything to deepen this Electoral Act. Do you remember how serious, even on election day, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, the card readers did not work for him, but he still insisted. That video is still there, and it was a channel's reporter that asked him, and he insisted that let's trust the process. As far as I'm concerned, and as the MBA has rightly said, the president, there was no reason for him not to accede to this bill. Well, there's no logic, unless he's admitting that he cannot provide security. And if you would ask me, the people that really even have problems when they conduct direct primaries is the same president's party. So maybe he's speaking from experience, but some of us do not feel that if we have this new and evolved Electoral Act, that it is so much of a problem if there's a constitutional holdback. Now leave it to the people or leave it to the political parties to go to the courts.
Well, Mr. Ehilebo, incidentally, I needed to put in this question, and it seems we have lost you. Okay, if you can hear me. Oh, yes, I
Yes,
can
I
hear
can
you.
hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, you can land on that point. I need to ask you a question
Okay,
before we wind
for
down
me,
in 4 minutes.
Kade, so for me as a person, I had expected that the National Assembly would have gone one step further by vetoing the president.
Right.
When they started, this national, they're better off served with an electoral act that is mundane. The 2015 electoral act will seem that it has expired.
Okay,
It will
Mr.
be a
Hilabo,
theme.
I need to really come in now and just ask you, because having spoken to, governors, in fact, some of them in your party, chieftains and the rest, it would seem they are actually in support of the president having an issue with the direct primaries, compulsory direct primaries provision. So it's like a mixed bag. Not quite happy that the president declined assent, but on the other hand, glad that they're not stuck with just direct primaries. So are you saying that even the direct primaries provision, which makes it compulsory in that bill, that you're in support of that as well?
Kayode, I watched the interview that you're referring to, and that interview was with Governor Jason Wike of Rivers State. And Governor Wike was very clear when he said to you, Kayode, that as far as he's concerned, the president should have signed that bill. And I know he differed slightly from the position of the National Publicity Secretary, but at the end of the day, majority of Nigerians really want the Electoral Act amendment to go through. So it is more of the wish of the people than the wish of we politicians. We must come to a place where we politicians begin to respect the will of people and not just our whims and caprices, not what the party feels like, not what those who advise the president. And by the way, I think the president should be cautious of the kind of advice he gets. Remember, just today it broke in the news that certain directors in the NIA wrote him and said, be careful what you sign. So I'm not even sure the president is even completely aware of what has even happened. But then again, that's a matter left to continue to wonder if that's really true.
Well, let's have Mr. Oyalowo respond to that as we wind down on the program. Mr. Oyalowo.
Yeah, I do not want to respond to Anthony because I don't want to make it a personal issue. However, Anthony should not play petty politics with this issue. If he says the APC do not want to sign, they do not want to blah, 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 but he has forgotten, like he rightly said himself, that the National Assembly has majority APC. So if the APC is against Electoral Act, why would the APC dominated assembly, both the top and the lower house, pass the bill in the first place? I mean, for me, everything is not about politics, like I rightly said. It's not about attack and defend. It's about the truth. The president could have rightly vetoed the bill. He did not veto the bill. He wrote to explain why. And right now, as we speak, the National Assembly has received this letter. They have read, and they have agreed that they will come back and discuss the clause. So why don't we just wait for this process to finish? He rightly said again just now that let's trust the process. So if there's a process ongoing, it has not been vetoed or directly thrown in the bin. Why are we arguing over it? So that is why I didn't want to respond before, but I think we'll just make this clear. The president has not vetoed the bill. He has not thrown away the bill. He wrote to explain the area he had issue, and his party don't even want it. I remember there is a vehement critic of the president, the governor of Benue State, who never likes the president for any reason. But he came yesterday shouting that thank you for not signing that bill. So it is clear that even his party have issue with some area in that bill. So why are we still arguing this? So let the National Assembly arrange the clause, give parties the opportunity to choose whichever mode of election they want to, whichever mode of primary election. Then,
well,
if
Mr. Oyalowo,
then let us see if the president will sign or not. Instead of this attack and defense mode that we are putting up.
Okay, so, I mean, point taken from you, gentlemen, but just to reiterate that the term veto essentially means a constitutional right to reject a decision or proposal made by a lawmaking body. The Nigerian Constitution gives the president 30 days to signify that he assents or withholds his assent. So if you say the president has not vetoed this bill, well, the constitutional provision gives him 30 days. I know, gentlemen, but clearly this is an ongoing conversation. Okay, Let's just leave it at that for now, gentlemen, because this is an ongoing conversation. It's been quite interesting having you, Mr. Ayo Oyalowo and Mr. Anthony Ehilebo. Mr. Oyalowo is of the APC, Mr. Ehilebo is of the PDP. Thank you so much for your time on the program tonight. Well, that's our package, everyone. Tomorrow is another day to have a beautiful night. I'm Kaide Kikili. Goodbye.